how often I should take my CinnaChroma, lean apple cider vinegar, and berberine. My doctor asked me to stop taking my metformin and Tradjenta because of intermittent fasting and restricted eating. I'm totally off carbs and sugar for 3 months. My glucose when I wake up is in the 80s and 90s without any medication.
Wow, well, that's normal.
Yeah.
So now at this point, the CinnaChroma supplement is just a supplement. This isn't something to lower your blood glucose, but think of it as this is a reasonable supplement. So if you took it every day, then you're going to get all the vitamin D that you need. You don't need another vitamin D supplement. It's 5,000 units of vitamin D.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar. Look at that beauty right there. We are going to be talking about that today. Hopefully you're all seeing this here on your screen, this overflowing sink that's just
Overflowing.
Yes, it's overflowing.
Just overflowing with water.
Have you guys been there? I was looking at pictures for this and I saw someone with their dishwasher, they put too much soap in it. And so all the soap was spilling everywhere. And I was like, I've been there. I have been there before. And that's what we're going to talk about today is what's happening here and how that relates to our body when we have type 2. And the fun thing is Dr. Saunders is going to give us some ideas for what to do with this overflowing sink. What are the steps to get rid of the water, which you would think would be very simple, right? But when we relate this to type 2 in our body, for some reason, we don't tend to do the simple things and we overcomplicate it. And so we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. Some of you have heard this analogy, and it is probably the best description of type 2 that I've ever heard, or at least how to reverse type 2. And so I'm excited to have Dr. Saunders dig into that a little bit, share with you guys. If you're new, say hello. You're gonna want to stick around for this. This'll be good. We have Joe on today. Dr. Saunders is in his office. We got people raising their hands. You guys are all excited to learn more about what's happening with this. And I'm actually going to stop my share here. Before we get started, I want to do a quick disclaimer. So Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. And most of the information that he's sharing is for general purposes only. And so be sure to talk with your healthcare provider before you implement any of the things that we're talking about today. Say hello, guys, in that chat, if you would be so kind. Oh, Monty's back. Hello. We have Deb from Ohio. Gail is here. Mark, Ryan Kelly's in the house. Awesome. Devinder is back. Terry, you're back. David's back. Emmanuel, how are you? Lloyd, you're back as well. You guys, awesome. James is here. So we're so excited that you guys are here. If you have a question that comes up while we're talking, will you do me a favor and post those in the Q&A? And then those of you on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to just comment. We'll get to as many of those as possible. Ginger is here. Hi, guys. See, this is so fun. It's like our weekly meeting where we get to refresh our minds on all things health related, learning more about how to take care of our bodies. And this is just a good time. So again, Q&A for those of you on Zoom. If you are not even sure how you're seeing this and you're not watching it on Zoom, you can register for this webinar. You'll be reminded. It's once a week, same time. We talk about type 2. And it's really, really informative. Even if you don't have type 2, you are going to learn a lot about your body. Dr. Saunders, what percentage of people have pre-diabetes?
Well, it's estimated that 1/3 to 1/2 of the population of the United States has pre-diabetes or diabetes.
Wow.
So it's a lot. We're talking hundreds of millions of people here. This is not like a COVID. This is like a real epidemic.
So how does that?
Uh-oh, I said the word.
We're gonna have to edit it out again.
Okay, edit that out.
This gets fast.
You have to fix that in post.
We can't even talk about these things anymore because then they just delete us or they ban us. So welcome to our life. Okay, so Joe's on mute. See, he can talk about it, but we can't hear him, so that works.
That was probably good. I didn't unmute myself there.
Okay. Okay, so what was I going to say? No, I actually already forgot. Well, okay, you know what? With that, let's just get started. Should bring up my beautiful picture again so we can kind of chat. Let's see here. Get excited, guys.
Okay.
This is just a random picture I found online. This isn't the one in my home, and at least I hope not. I'll go check afterward. But here you go. This is what we're going to talk about today. Dr. Saunders, what are we looking at here? And how in the world does this even relate to type 2, getting help with type 2?
Okay. So this is like, it's a really good analogy, because when you have type 2, what's happening is your body, your cells, actually every cell in your body is overflowing with sugar. There's a lot of it there. It's just overflowing. So you go into your doctor and your doctor says, oh, your blood sugar is high. Your blood glucose is too high. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that you have too much glucose in your body, and it's spilling over from your cells. It's spilling over into your blood, and so your blood level's getting too high. Oh, doctor, what do I do about that? Well, let's clean it up. So it's kind of like, your sink's overflowing. So first thing you do, you call the plumber, and the plumber says, what do I do about that? And the plumber says, what's going on? You say, the sink's overflowing. You go, what do I do about that? And he says, get a mop, dummy. That's all you got to do is start mopping up the floor. So you start mopping up the floor, you're wringing the mop and mopping up the floor, wringing the mop, and it's starting to overflow more. So you call the plumber and you say, it's overflowing more. What do I do? Oh, get another mop. So you and your wife are in there, and then it starts overflowing more. And then he's going, well, get another mop. So you got like your kids in there, everybody's cleaning up, and they're bringing buckets out and throwing them out. And you're just mopping it up, and the floor's not getting dry, but at least it's not getting out into the hallway and flooding your whole house. But it's starting to get there. So if you had that kind of a situation, what would you do with your plumber? What would you say to your plumber? Dude, is there a better way? Is there some other way to fix this besides just mopping? So in the sense of diabetes, when you go to your doctor and he says, oh, you have or she says you have type 2 diabetes, what does that mean? Well, your sugar, your glucose is spilling into your blood. You have this excess in your blood. And so you go, what do I do about that? Well, take a medication. What does the medication do? Well, it lowers the blood sugar. Does it fix the problem? No, it doesn't fix the problem. It just lowers the blood sugar temporarily. So then it starts going up again, and you go back to the doctor. The doctor says, well, done. We'll just give you another medicine. And then you go back to the doctor, it goes up again. Oh, we'll just give you another medicine. So now you're on 3 medications or 4 or 5. I've had people on 5 medications and their blood sugars are still over 200, and they're still peeing out sugar, and things just are not working well. So that's kind of like this spilling over thing. So what do you really do about it? Well, the number one thing you're going to want to do when you call your plumber and say, the sink's spilling over, what do I do? And the plumber should say, turn off the water. Is that just a simple thing to do? Turn off the water. That's all you got to do. So if you were to go to your doctor and the doctor would say, and the doctor says, oh, you have this excess of glucose, you have too much sugar in your blood. And then what do I do? Instead of saying mop it up with a mop with medications, the doctor should say, turn off the sugar. Just turn it off. That's all you have to do. You look at that sink, look, it's off. That's what we do. That's our phase 1 of our program, is just turn it off. And it's that simple. It's a detox. It's a cleanse. It's shut off the water, and then it can't spill over anymore. And once you shut off the water, then you can mop up what's on the floor, and then you can work on taking the water out of the sink and putting it in the bathtub. Right? You gotta empty the sink out. In the same sense, you have these cells that are jam-packed full of sugar and they're overflowing and spilling into the blood. So what are you going to do? Well, stop the flow of sugar in. Number one, that's phase one of the program. And then number two, start using up what's in those cells. Use up that sugar. How do you do that? Exercise is a great way to do that. And so if you just start off with phase one of the program, shut off the glucose that's coming in, because you're on a very low glucose diet. You're only allowed 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. And that's all you get. And that's not enough to run your body on. So what ends up happening is you start using up all of the glucose that's stored in all those cells. And then you exercise and you use it up more. And so that is the most reasonable and logical way to handle diabetes. And so that's what we did. That's why we made this program. It's simple.
Awesome. And here's the diabetes solution kit, guys. So this is the program that he's talking about. Many of you have already purchased this. You can get a digital version immediately sent to your email, or we'll actually get a link and you can download it so that you can look at it on your phone, on a tablet, a computer, however you want to do it. And then you can do this hard copy as well. It just costs a little bit more, but you can start this today. It's very simple. You don't need a bunch of extra fancy stuff. That's one of the things that Dr. Saunders talks about. It's really low carb, ketogenic type diet. Yes, we have supplements and those can help, and we talk about those, but the real magic is here in this program. And so you can find that at bartonwebinar.com. Okay, so I know that we have questions. Let's see. David said, illustration of overflowing sink and faucet that is turned off. Well, they already did step one, Dave. That's why it was shut off. Yeah. We talked about that in the beginning before we even started. I said, I can't find a good picture. I did find good pictures, but the water was so gross that I didn't want to make you guys look at it. So, but you get it. So it just helps. I love Dr. Saunders' visuals that he gives us because they really, really help me to understand what's going on in the body. It also simplifies what you're doing. When you can think to yourself, oh, all I have to do is shut off the water or shut off the sugar. I can do that. You visually can see that happening. So thanks for hanging in there with us. It was the best I could do at the time. All right. Okay. So some questions coming in. Iman wants to know if B12 supplements are good for lowering blood sugar.
It's not likely that a deficiency of vitamin B12 is going to cause high blood glucose. So probably not specifically for that. However, vitamin B12 is very important for energy production. And it's hard to absorb vitamin B12. So taking a supplement, at least like a once a week, 1 milligram supplement is going to give you plenty of vitamin B12. I know I test people for their vitamin B12. Almost every test I do, well, at least every person, I do a test on vitamin B12 to see what their levels are. And if they're taking a supplement, they have really good levels. And if they're not, they may have good levels and they may not.
What do you think about the shots, the B12 shots? I know we have some IV clinics here in my city, and you can just stop in and get a B12 shot if you want.
Yeah, I have one person who comes in on a weekly basis for a vitamin B12 shot, and she says, you know what, it helps her to function, and she's able to work in her garden and all of that, and you know what, that's what she needs once a week. And I don't know why, but you know what? Some people have enzymes that don't function very well and need pretty high levels, like with shots. A shot is going to give you a lot more than a pill, even though if it's the same dose. If you take 1 milligram shot, you're going to have a much higher blood level than if you take a 1 milligram pill, because your pill, only a portion of it absorbed, estimated around 30 micrograms of it. Even if you take, a 5 milligram pill, you're only going to get a few micrograms.
Okay. All right. Good question. Devinder is asking if diabetes makes osteopenia worse.
Oh, That's an interesting question. So does diabetes block the ability for the bones to put on bone, or does it cause you to take out bone out of your body? It should not. It shouldn't affect the calcium very much. I don't think. Well, on the other hand, you could have, if you have excessive urination because of diabetes, then you could be losing calcium, in which case it would take it out of the bones. So not likely, but not out of the question.
Okay. Blessed is asking how often I should take my CinnaChroma, lean apple cider vinegar, and berberine. My doctor asked me to stop taking my metformin and Tragenta because of intermittent fasting and restricted eating. I'm totally off carbs and sugar for 3 months. My glucose when I wake up is in the 80s and 90s without any medication.
Wow, well, that's normal.
Yeah.
So now at this point, the CinnaChroma supplement is just a supplement. This isn't something to lower your blood glucose, but think of it as this is a reasonable supplement. So if you took it every day, then you're going to get all the vitamin D that you need. You don't need another vitamin D supplement. It's 5,000 units of vitamin D. Plus, you're going to get enough of all the other things, selenium and chromium, vanadium, vitamin K, so that you continue to maintain your blood sugar more easily. So yeah, once a day would be fine. If you miss days, no big deal.
Well, and did you say anything about berberine?
Berberine, yeah. Well, you probably don't need berberine. If you're between 80 and 90, that's pretty much where normal people are, and you may not need berberine at all.
Unless you want to take berberine for the anti-aging benefits, you could keep taking.
That's true. That's true. They're doing a lot of research on that. Wow, it prevents cancer. It helps people to.
Probably can't say that. We probably can't say that either.
Probably can't say that either.
We can't tell you all the true things, guys. Sorry, but I don't know. We probably can say that. We'll find out.
If we could reference the case studies to that potentially.
Yeah. Then maybe we'll be all right.
Which there are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's been a lot. We've talked a lot about berberine and its benefits. So I think you're fine probably saying that. But yeah, and good job. That's a really big deal to wake up and have blood sugar numbers in the 80s and 90s. There are people here who would love to have a morning like that. So good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Rosalind is back. Hi, Dr. Saunders. I've been traveling and I've missed a lot, but I'm having issues. I took a pain shot about a month ago and it elevated my blood sugar and it has not gone back down. It's been running at 355. I'm on Toujeo Solo Star 50 milligrams. I'm getting frustrated because it won't go down. I was due for an outpatient surgery, but it was canceled because my blood sugar was up from the steroid shot. How do I address this issue with my doctor, or what can I do to change it? I have not been having any carbs. So what's the issue?
Wow. Well, the issue is insulin resistance from a shot of cortisol. It's a cortisol analog, and even the insulin doesn't bring that down, and that's what was noticed. Because when you have a lot of stress, insulin doesn't work well for that high blood sugar, because the cortisol or cortisone derivatives cause insulin resistance. So they block the insulin from working. So you can inject insulin, but that doesn't mean your blood sugar is going to go down, right? So the way to address this is to detox. The same thing. If you're not doing ongoing any kind of cortisone types of things, if that was a one-time thing, then you should pretty well be able to detox off of that. And the best detox is not eating for a period of time. And if you give it 24 hours is probably adequate. According to Walter Longo, who does research on longevity, he says about 3 days, about 72 hours is the best amount of time to detox. And pretty much, I've looked at the research. Other research has shown that that's pretty much true. That, remember, we talked about the rats with their brains, and it required 3 days before they were able to tolerate the hypoglycemia because their brains got the increased glucose transport proteins, and that took 3 days. And so it seems like that 3 days is kind of a magical number for detoxing. And I'll bet if you did something like that, and be very careful, not, with insulin, if you're doing a detox and you're not eating anything, then be careful with insulin. In fact, I wouldn't take insulin at all. And just, if your blood sugar is 300, it's 300 anyway. Insulin's not working. So, yeah.
All right. Delbert said, I had a C-peptide test done last week and it came back at 1.8. Remind us of what a C-peptide test is.
Okay, the C-peptide is a part of the insulin. So every time your pancreas makes insulin, it makes a pre-pro insulin that gets spit out and then gets cut up into the insulin part and the C-peptide part. The C-peptide is a waste protein. It actually isn't, but that's the leftover part. And then you have the active part, which is the insulin hormone, which is a peptide hormone. And then that C-peptide, it lasts a little longer than the insulin. So it allows you to sort of see a long acting, how much is your pancreas putting out? How much insulin is your pancreas making? And 1.8 is fine. Ideally, it should be around 1. 1.8 is a little on the higher side for a fasting level, like a morning level. But if you've been eating or something, then you'd expect it to be around 2. So that would be just fine. If it's over 3, that's pretty high. So that kind of gives you an idea of the range that it should be in.
All right. Okay, so we have Archie, who says, I am a diabetic. I weigh only 123 pounds. I need to gain some weight and I take CinnaChroma every day. Before you answer this, can you tell us the difference between type 1 and type 2, just in case? So I just want to make sure we clarify those two.
Okay, that is a great question because that is probably the difference here. The I am a diabetic usually often means type 1, requiring insulin. And why is that? Well, if the pancreas doesn't make enough insulin, then you are a type 1 diabetic. If the pancreas makes too much insulin and you're resistant to it, you're a type 2 diabetic. So that's the difference. So if you have a lot of insulin, if you're type 2 with a lot of insulin, you're going to gain weight really easily because insulin is the hormone that tells your fat cells to make more fat, Don't use fat for energy. Whereas in type 1, you don't have enough insulin, you're insulin deficient. And so you can't put weight on. In fact, before we had insulin injections, people with type 1 diabetes died of starvation, no matter how much they ate. They used to call it consumption because they would be eating and eating and eating, but they would just shrink down and shrivel down to nothing because they couldn't get any glucose into their cells, their muscle cells especially, but a lot of the other cells as well. So the wasting happens when you don't have enough insulin. So the answer to the question now is what could be going wrong? It might be that you're not making enough insulin. So you need that C-peptide test. So do insulin, C-peptide, hemoglobin A1C, and glucose, those 4 tests all together, and that allows you the short-acting, long-acting, short insulin, and the short-acting, long-acting glucose. So it allows you to see a bigger picture of what's going on.
Okay. I'm actually going to post those in the chat also because those are tests that you do often recommend for people. this specifically that group.
Yeah.
If someone is maybe not seeing the results that they would think that they should be getting, maybe they're doing the diabetes solution kit and they're being strict. There's a lot of people who are telling us they're doing the diabetes solution kit, but they're sneaking stuff in there, and they're sneaking some sugar in there, like 30 grams, and so if you really are, let's say you really are doing this, you're not seeing results. After how much time do you think you should do those tests? I know everyone's different, but what would you say?
Yeah, everyone's different. If you're not seeing results right away, I mean, even people who have had diabetes for many years should start seeing their glucose coming down like within days. Because if you aren't taking in enough glucose, you can't store very much glucose. We store a day's supply, maybe 2 days supply. You really don't store. Glucose is not a storage thing. Your muscles store glycogen, the liver stores some glycogen, but that's easy to use up in a matter of a day or two, maybe 3 maximum. So, if you're not seeing results in a week or two, then you should start saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? Let's do some further testing to find out what's going on.
All right, I posted those in the chat. It's on Facebook as well. But again, hemoglobin A1C, glucose level, insulin level, and C-peptide.
It's really interesting, that thought that we don't store glucose. We store fat for energy. We don't store glucose for energy. Very little of it, really. There was a Nike tried to get an under 2-hour marathon. Which, you're running a 4.5 minute mile for 26.2 miles. That's amazing. And what they found was that they didn't have enough glucose, even carbo loading. They couldn't keep enough glucose in their body to actually run the entire marathon. You just don't store that much. It's not enough.
And so that's why they're doing those little squeeze glucose things in the middle of races. Yeah. Very interesting. Obviously, I don't know what they're called because I don't run that far. That's a long. I've never needed that. I used to be able to run 7 or 8 miles, but I didn't need glucose packets for that.
My daughter, next month, is running the marathon in Marathon.
Really?
The marathon to Athens. It's the marathon.
Oh my goodness.
In Greece.
Wow. Yeah. How cool is that?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow. Very fun. Talk about dedication. Okay. Let's see. James says, how does one choose between calories or grams of sugar?
Okay. Okay. Choose when you're monitoring calories is okay. It's really, but in the case of type 2, we're really more interested in the glucose. So grams of sugar is a better choice for monitoring and measuring. And that's why we looked at it that way instead of calories. Because yes, if you think about it, if you're down to 20 grams of sugar and you're still gorging yourself on all these meat and vegetables and stuff, you can still gain weight and you can still be insulin resistant and you can still have issues. I told you guys before about a patient of mine. He and his wife both had type 2, and so I put them on this diet. And his wife started losing weight, and her blood sugar's coming down, and she's feeling great. And he's gaining weight. And he's like, "What the heck? We eat the same things. We literally eating the same things. What's going on here?" Well, it turns out he was really sensitive to protein. And protein would raise his insulin, and protein caused him to put on weight. So he's eating like a carnivore diet almost. And we had to get him off the protein and get him on more of those free foods, the vegetables and stuff. And then he started doing well.
Wow. Interesting. Are there tests to find out if you're sensitive to proteins like that, or do you just find out as you start going?
You kind of find out as you start going.
Interesting. Okay. Deborah says, can high glucose levels cause chronic headache?
high glucose levels. Yes. The answer is it depends, but yes, glucose can affect that. So glucose affects the how much fluid there is in cells, for example. But since there's a blood-brain barrier, and people have high glucose levels for a long period of time, have less sugar getting into their brain, that it doesn't usually cause like your eyeballs will swell up and get bigger because of the high glucose, right? Because there's more sugar in there, so the water comes in and makes, and so that's why vision changes. People say, oh man, sometimes I can see really close and sometimes I see really far away. And that's because there's actual changes in the eyeballs. But with the blood-brain barrier, you don't see that so much in the brain. But high glucose can cause low glucose in the brain, or sometimes high glucose in the brain. And that can affect people that get headaches, especially migraine headaches.
Interesting. Aubrey says, what do you think about the paleo diet? Actually, I have 3 recipes that I'm going to cook in the next couple of days that are paleo recipes.
Yeah. So paleo is fine. It's good. So paleo is kind of like our diet, the ketogenic diet that we put into the phase 1. The paleo is a milder diet where you get more carbs are allowed. And instead of counting carbs like you would on a keto diet, the paleo diet, you're just avoiding things that tend to be high in carbs, like grains. Like you don't eat any grains at all in the paleo diet. But you can have a lot more fruits like berries and stuff like that. And you don't, and potatoes. Yeah. So you don't count the carbs, sweet potatoes, stuff like that. So, and actually the paleo diet, I think it's a good diet generally. And I've put people on the autoimmune paleo diet, which is just all natural, organic paleo. And I've had them get rid of allergies and autoimmune diseases by doing that. So I've seen it work for that kind of thing. It's good. It's a good diet for a lot of people.
I think it's good too. The thing that you'd have to be careful with if you are looking to reverse your type 2 is that it does allow for more natural sweeteners like syrups, I believe, like real maple syrup, probably honey and those kinds of things. And I don't know that that's something you want to have if you're trying to reduce or reverse your type 2. Right. So something to think about. You still got to count your carbs. Your sweet potato could put you over the edge. I don't actually know how many carbs are in a sweet potato, but it's quite a bit. Okay. All right. So Larry says, what for sure is the sign to go from phase 1 to phase 2? 9 out of 10 mornings are double digit, sometimes a bit low, other times 70, 80, 90. And most evenings before bed, double digits, lower triple digits, a few times 115 to 120.
Okay. So those numbers are indicating that that you still have some to go. You still have some insulin resistance. And so even though your blood sugar is technically normal, the morning factor, the dawn effect of the release of adrenaline and cortisol make you somewhat insulin resistant. So you see the blood glucose go up because of that. And so when you are consistently, so when you go to phase 2, when you are consistently between 70 and 90. And how long? A couple weeks, whatever, or 3 weeks. If you're between 70 and 90, then you can start.
One other note from Larry says, by the way, my doctor took me off of glipizide. So those are his numbers now that he's off of glipizide. So you're doing great.
That's good. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Okay. Let me see here. I have a message from, I lost it. Darn it. Okay. I'll get back to that one. Okay. Krish says, I am asking the question below. I will be slightly deviating from the main topic of water retention in type 2 subjects. In regard to treatment of chronic inflammation and IBS, several gastroenterologists, I've read that wrong, gastroenterologists prefer a carefully selected tested set of probiotics in massive doses. The idea is to kill the bad guys, which have invaded the gut and bioflora, and then it can be rebuilt in the gut with the help of these 100 to 200 billion viable cells. Since I am adverse to antibiotics, my preference is to resort to massive probiotic doses. I'm not sure what that word is. I'm unable in the US. I'm unable to find a place where I can do this. Can you help me? Many thanks, Dr. Saunders.
Okay, so you need help finding a massive doses of probiotics.
Or maybe to
right?
get them. Yeah,
To get
that
them?
does sound like it. Yeah.
You can get them online. People in your situation, I often have them order online an orthomolecular product called Probiotic 225, and that's 225 billion organisms, and it has the ones you want. It has the Lactobacillus, the Bifidobacterium, and the S. boulardii in it. That's generally the one that I would use because it has 225. But so I know you can get that online, and you can probably get it from the people the orthomolecular orders from physicians. So there aren't very many health food stores that have that particular brand.
What about years ago? I remember taking a product, I think it was called VSL.
Yeah, VSL number 3. It used to be at pharmacies.
I could pick it up at Costco even, I think, without a prescription.
Yeah, it may be available at other places. It used to be a prescription, but it's no longer a prescription. So it used to be like at pharmacies.
Okay. Linda says, how can one stop the habit of drinking alcohol, which causes glucose to rise?
That is the best question. That is, you know what? This has been a question for thousands of years. This is not something that just, comes up because of our modern society. Because alcohol makes people feel better. And if you have anxiety and you drink alcohol and you go, and you get to relax, that's a big motivator to drink alcohol. And if you can't drink alcohol, then you're like, how do I relax?
Yeah.
So the idea of how do I stop is to have something to replace it. So if you take up meditation, if you take up a Wim Hof breathing, every time you want alcohol, you jump in a freezing cold ice bath or something like that. There are things, and the reason I mention that actually is because that's what my daughter did. My daughter went to school in Idaho, and in the middle of winter, when it's, below zero outside, as she goes and she breaks the ice in a stream and gets into the water in the stream with her arms are sitting up on the ice. And she says that is really a great way. And her anxiety went away, and she was able to finish the school year, where before she was like, I got to come home. I can't stay here. So I don't know, whatever you can do to replace what the alcohol does for you. Yeah. And don't use sugar, man. So many people, they go off alcohol and then they eat a whole bunch of, especially sugar and stuff, because that kind of gives you the dopamine rush too. Yeah. So avoid things that go in your mouth. Yeah, and do something else. So I had one woman who would run, and she would just go out and run and until she'd hit the wall, and she'd go, oh, I know when I push through the wall, I'm going to get the endorphin rush. And then she did. And that's how she was able to stop. And heroin, I think. Anyway, so find something that's productive that takes the place of it.
Yes.
I was going to say something. There's a related question about the rum-soaked peanuts that we do some of that. And there are studies that show like alcohol actually drops your blood sugar, if that by itself. And I think it has something to do with the liver stops releasing glucose into the body or something like that. So a couple things. One, a lot of times alcohol has carbs added to it, a lot of sweet drinks and all that, depending on what you have, but so that's what you just said. But then another thing you can do is like just drink. There's other alternative products like hop water or sparkling waters, or because sometimes you want, it's kind of like smokers that stop smoking, they still want something in their mouth, so might use toothpicks or whatever else, different things, replacements.
Yeah.
So, but I am curious, like we've talked a little bit about it, like alcohol, does it raise or lower blood sugar, and does it matter if you like for people that have type 2 or not?
Well, it'd be good to see some of the, if you guys have a continuous glucose monitor and can see what's happening, it'd be fun to test that for yourself and then let us know how that works for you. Of course, you're going to have different results from, like a margarita versus straight vodka. I'm sure might be a little different, but yeah, it'd be fun to know what some of those results are.
That would actually be really interesting, because the results, like Joe was saying, the results with alcohol, just pure alcohol, it depends on how the study's done. Beer has a lot of carbs in it besides alcohol, and if you're drinking straight vodka, that's going to be way different than drinking a beer. So yeah, totally.
And
the other thing that how alcohol affects things is your sleep. Like if you're like, often you just won't sleep as good, like your body has troubles at night. And like I've tested that. I wear a Whoop band, so this like I wear this at night and it tracks my HRV and my sleep and deep sleep and all that. And like if I've had a glass of wine, at any time, a few hours before bed or whatever, like I don't sleep as good. So I've like, that's motivation enough for me, like to get a really good night's sleep. And then Dr. Saunders, I was going to tie this in or mention this, but like you talk about the 6-10 reset, which is such a huge part of what we teach. And I've seen that with this Whoop band, like my sleep is so much better if I go to bed at 10 o'clock on an empty stomach. Like it's night and day difference. Like my heart rate variability, which is a metric that I've been really digging into more lately, like that goes way up and I feel so much better the next day. So like everybody should be doing that, like go to bed on an empty stomach and go to sleep at the same time every night, preferably by 10. So yeah. Good
stuff. I already know there's a lot of questions in here. I even got some emails about this. Avoiding sugar, or I'm sorry, sugar alternatives, stevia, monk fruit, etc. And I'll just tell you that those sometimes your body will respond to them just like as if you were eating regular sugar. And there's a question here from Susan. She said, since Truvia, which contains stevia, has been approved as safe by the FDA, why has stevia leaf not been? It seems like it would be safer since it contains no alcohol sugar like Truvia. Also, I grew stevia in my garden one year. It was awesome. But just like fruit, your body can still react to it the same way, which is really interesting, even though it's natural. So if you want to dig into that conversation, we can do that. We do that a lot, but it's good to touch base about it because people want sweet things.
Yeah, that's kind of that's an issue, because we've talked about there have been people on our program who said, they're eating they're chewing gum, and it's sugar-free gum. There's no sugar in it at all, and they're getting high blood glucose, and it doesn't come down until they get off the sweet gum, for example. But drinks, the same thing. Drinks that have Truvia or anything that tastes sweet, because the sweet taste is preparing your body to receive sugar. And why does that happen? Well, the pancreas starts making insulin, and so it's so anything that tastes sweet is not a good idea in phase 1.
Yes. James says, my wife wants to know what is a good source of protein, such as eggs versus steak.
Oh, well, they're all good sources of protein. Beans are a good source of protein. Steak, eggs. If you think about when an egg what's in an egg and what the egg has to become, you realize, oh my gosh, every single nutrient that you could possibly need to build a chicken is in the egg. So yeah, every protein, every nutrient that you
Don't think
possibly
too hard
need.
about it though. Don't think too hard about it.
Yeah.
Then it's not as fun to eat.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
What are some of your favorite protein sources? Joe, what are yours?
Protein for me, just steak, meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I have some beef sticks from Paleo Valley that I like. There's a couple of good clean protein bars out there that are pretty decent, and some low carb protein powders, whey based, but for the most part, just meat.
Yeah. Yeah. Us too. My husband likes to get a lot of, he'll like once a week, well, not probably twice a week, and he'll cook a whole bunch of steak. He'll grill a bunch of it and eat that for many meals. I have to get a little bit more creative with my meals. I am not someone who can eat the same thing for every meal. Although I've said that many times, I made a really good, it's actually a Whole30 buffalo chicken soup. I've probably eaten that for 7 meals the past 3 days. So I can do that. There are some things I can do. But that was phenomenal. And actually the longer that sat and when I froze it, it tasted even better. So it was kind
So
of
here's an interesting thing about protein is most people eat too much protein. Protein is something that we all need, and the body recycles, but we don't need nearly as much as people say we need. I've heard people say that, you need 100 grams of protein a day, or take your body weight, like half your body weight in grams of protein or something like that. And actually, when studies were done on what is the minimum amount of protein, it's actually very little for the minimum amount. And too much causes other problems. It causes you to turn on a gene called mTOR, which is a growth hormone gene that actually can increase cancer as well. So it's not like you have to eat concentrated forms of protein. And occasionally, it's not a big deal. If you look at meat-eating animals, they tend to engorge and get fat on a kill. They'll just eat pure protein, and then they won't eat anything for days or even weeks. And then they'll go for another one, and they'll go engorge on that, and then they'll go for a long time. So there's they eat a lot, and then they don't eat anything for a long time, and then they eat a lot, and then they don't eat anything for a long time. That kind of thing is what high protein kinds of meal. That's a good idea, not to do it all the time.
I think I have 3 questions about people who are starting to find success. Their numbers are starting to drop. And there's 2 sides to this. They're wondering, when should I stop taking my metformin when this happens? And then other people are saying, I just got my CinnaChroma and my berberine. Should I stop my metformin right now? Overall, everyone wants to stop their metformin. So when can people do that?
Well, it's just like in this situation where I'm talking to hundreds of people, even thousands of people, some of whom are taking metformin for a very good reason, and some of whom don't really need metformin, to make a blanket statement about should you take metformin or not. And that's where, this is an individualized thing where you work with your doctor and say, okay, at what point does it take for me to get off metformin? If you're on phase 1 and your blood glucose is getting down, you're checking once a day and it's like 70, 80, 90 consistently, then it's pretty easy to go to your doctor and say, hey, my blood glucose is normal, and I'd like to stop the metformin. And then they'd probably be like, yeah, sure, stop the metformin. You have normal blood glucose. And then, and you could even do it, present it to your doctor as a test. Can we test to see how I do off the metformin because my glucose has been normal lately? that kind of thing works well too.
When you guys first start, I was responding to a message here, so I don't know if you mentioned this part, but when you say you ordered the CinnaChroma or the berberine or something, and you're already taking metformin, you don't want to make any changes right away in the beginning. Did you mention that? Okay.
Yeah.
Just
No,
keep
I didn't mention.
okay, keep taking your metformin. What will happen is if you're using the diabetes solution kit, maybe you're using CinnaChroma, whatever, if your numbers start to drop, then you get to go to the doctor and say, what do I do? My numbers are getting too low. Shoot, I'm gonna have to reduce my medicine probably, and they should be happy to do that for you, I would assume. So that's the perfect scenario. Okay. Debbie said, I purchased the program a few years ago. How does one get a more recent version of the book? You know what? Just email support@bartonpublishing.com and they will help you. Linda says, when should one exercise? Is it every time after eating or some days in a week? What's best to control blood sugar?
Okay, that's a great, exercise opens up the muscles and allows glucose to be brought into the muscles so it can lower blood sugar, blood glucose. And exercise done 3 times a week, kind of at a minimum. 5 times a week is really good. And to the point of where you get tired, and it doesn't take a whole lot. You can do 30 minutes, and that's generally what I do, is about 30 minutes of exercise, like a high intensity interval training. It depends on what you're doing. If you're just walking, then an hour or 2 would be better. So how much exercise you should do would depends on you. And ideally, as you're exercising, you should be increasing or able to increase the amount of exercise that you do, whether it's doing higher intensity, running faster, doing more in the same amount of time, or going longer. Either way would be fine. So just sort of to give you a sort of ballpark kinds of things, minimum would be about 3 days a week for 30 minutes of either high intensity interval training, that kind of thing. Or like people that are doing weightlifting or working out in the gym or Pilates or yoga or something like that. Those kinds of things are great, but about minimum of 3 times a week. 5 times a week is really good. Some people work out 7 days a week if you're trying to build, and that's okay too. So anywhere in there is fine.
Okay, so our friend who is 120 pounds does have type 2, but has very high glucose. I think he's wondering if I should take a lot of fat, if I should take lots of fat and protein and stop all carbs. I lost all limb muscles with diabetes, but put on weight on belly.
Okay, so insulin is also required to get amino acids into your muscles so that you could build muscle. So look into that. Your blood glucose is really high, and that often means that you don't have enough insulin. And if it's just insulin resistance, then you can work with that a little differently, way different than if your pancreas just is not making enough insulin. So having the C-peptide and the insulin level are going to be really helpful to determine how you're going to put on the weight.
Okay. I love this. Deborah says, when is the best time to check your blood sugar? Is it immediately after a meal, or should I wait an hour or so?
If you want to know how that meal affects your blood sugar, wait an hour or so. Right about 1 hour is right.
All right. A couple questions about how do I find a doctor like Dr. Saunders? My recommendation would be to Google maybe a functional doctor in your area, maybe, or Dr. Saunders. If someone lives near you, they could call you, correct?
Yeah.
So
They could call.
I'm going to put Dr. Saunders' office number in the chat. So I think if you're in California or Utah, they can call you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will share that. Okay. Monty says, Hi, good Dr. Saunders. So Monty is the one who sent us an email and you responded to him last week.
Right.
He says, I have to log off a little early because I have a meeting that my boss scheduled. I had received your personal email about testing. I was waiting for, oh, never mind. I guess there's another email that came through. So I haven't seen that yet. Okay, there isn't a question there. I guess there's another email, so I'll find that. Okay, am I missing any more questions right here? So someone says, where do I start with the diabetes solution kit? I use CinnaChroma, 1 capsule daily, and the Niagara 2 daily.
Okay, you start with page 1 and you go through each one. And so we go through, it's a step-by-step program. It's already programmed out so that you go through and you say, okay, what is my diet like? What are my stressors like? How much exercise do I do? And so you go through this whole series. So, we often talk about phase 1 is the diet, and yeah, that's part of it. But the book is actually much broader than that. It gives you a lot of ideas about things that you could change in your life that would make your blood glucose go down better. So yeah, just start with page 1 on the diabetes solution kit and go through phase 1.
Right. Kate said I have had stomach issues. I think possibly linked to turmeric. If I stop taking turmeric, will that affect my blood sugar?
Probably not a lot. It's not likely to. Turmeric is a really good anti-inflammatory. So it gets rid of inflammation. And some people have high blood glucose because of inflammation. But if you stop taking it, it's not likely to raise your blood glucose a lot.
Okay. Final question. What is the reason for recommending 2 capsules of berberine as opposed to 1 as a dose?
Okay. So berberine is something that is removed from the body fairly quickly. So it has a kind of a short half-life. And so the one way is to do 2 capsules, so it goes up and then it comes down gradually. So every day you have that. Another way to do it is to take it twice a day, take 1 capsule twice a day. Since people, and that's more of habits. People don't do well with twice a day dosing. It's hard for people to do something twice a day, 2 different times. So it's easier to take 2 of them once a day, but 1 twice a day is probably even better.
Awesome. Okay, that's it for us today. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. We'll see you tomorrow for the Healthy Heart webinar.
Oh, that's right, tomorrow.
Yes.
See you then.
Bye-bye. All right, you guys, thank you so much. We got through most of the questions. Let's see, Annabelle had asked if wine was okay for borderline diabetics. And I think, again, it just kind of goes back to what we talked about, how much sugar is in it. Is wine what you want to do if you have the risk of it increasing your glucose? Maybe check and see if you have a continuous glucose monitor, see how it affects you. And again, like Joe had mentioned, the impact that alcohol has on your sleep. And if you do not get enough sleep, that can really impact your numbers as well. So got to kind of think through that and decide if that's something that you want to do. All right. I think that's about it. Yes. Okay. So again, you can go to bartonwebinar.com. There is our hub where you can find all things related to these webinars, our products. Use code webinar25. That's one word, and you'll save 25% on anything that you find there. Anything else I'm missing?
I don't think so. Good job.
All right. Okay, guys, thanks so much for being here. Tomorrow we will have our Healthy Heart webinar. That is at 12 noon. Same type of format. You can register for that at Barton Webinar as well. It's free. So you're going to want to be there. Ask all the heart related questions. And of course, you'll get to learn from Dr. Saunders again. So we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. If not, next week again. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.